So welcome, welcome. Looks like a lot of you all I've seen on these calls before, or I've known in other walks of the world and life. So it's great to see all the familiar faces. Happy April, wherever you are in the world. Hope you're getting some sunshine and lighter evenings to brighten our spirits. But without further ado, I would love to kick off our speaker session today and introduce Dave Stangus, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Apollo Global Management, where he orchestrates the firm's comprehensive sustainability and ESG strategy. Also does reporting, climate initiatives, employee engagement, and pioneers new systems and capabilities across private equity and credit platforms. Looks like a big job. Dave's visionary approach has led to the creation of the first proactive ESG value creation strategy in the Fortune 100 over 2 decades ago. So his leadership propelled actually 2 Fortune 500 companies, Intel and Campbell Soup Company, into positions of world-class leadership in ESG, CSR, and sustainability. He is a board member at Matriarch Foods, Stojo, as well as an advisor at Magnumare and mentor at Ag Funder. He previously was a board member at Plum Organics, the Soulful Project, and Net Impact, where he and I crossed paths and met. He's an avid thought leader across social media and co-author of 2 books on Amazon about driving business and societal impact, 21st Century Corporate Citizenship. So welcome, Dave, and thanks so much for being here with us to share your wisdom about the 4 ways to build and scale a world-class sustainability function within private equity or private capital. Sorry, we just were talking about the difference between private equity and private capital. That's a good lead-in.
They're related.
Exactly. So great. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Shannon. It's good to see a few friendly faces, and I know it's kind of brutal having to listen to the whole bio. It's brutal for me too, but I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about anything. I know we've got an agenda to cover, and Shannon will make sure we get through that. But I'm also happy to try to be helpful in any way I can. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Dave. I know over the years you have been a linchpin for many of us in changing careers and just
my purpose is the same as yours, Shannon, is to put the right people in the right job.
Yep, I know, because that's where we have the scalable impact, right? We need everybody doing the work that they need, that's right for them, and that's where you really shape the scalable change. So yes, we've been aligned for many years, Dave. I know. Want to just kick off with mentioning how we know each other, and then we can get into your role a bit.
Yeah, it was interesting because I actually went back and tried to retrace a few steps. You know, we've been connected on LinkedIn since 2013. So that's a long time in kind of social media world. I think we first met probably at a Net Impact conference. I was on the board for 6 years there. I don't remember exactly the 6 years, but through part of I was involved at Intel but on the board at Campbell, and then was chair of that board. A very painful year because Liz Ma, that's the year Liz Ma decided that she would leave and had to do the CEO search, which was really tough, but it was good. And I was just with the current CEO of Net Impact 2 weeks ago in Detroit, speaking to the business schools, students from Wayne State and University of Michigan. So it was great to be back there. And then we did a little work on your book, which you plugged my to, but you didn't plug yours this one, but these people probably know that book. And yeah, we've known each other since. We see each other at GreenBiz a lot.
Right.
And if Net Impact ever gets back together and has an event, I'm sure we'll see each other there.
I know. It's a great organization. Yeah, it's interesting to see how organizations change based on leadership, right? Based on and
well, not only that, I think they're, part of their mission in life has been achieved. At a point in time, Net Impact was it. It was the only place, business students interested in, business for good could gather. And now we're all here, right? And they're, the companies have the roles, and Net Impact has definitely achieved success. There's hundreds of thousands of alumni out there, probably several on the Zoom call.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're right. And they were pioneers in this space. I mean, I started working with Net Impact 20 years ago when I was getting my master's, and they didn't even have, sustainability, corporate social responsibility, environmental, nothing in any of these universities yet. So
Right.
it was all we had as students trying to shift our careers. So, well, great to have you, Dave. I know everyone's eager to hear about you and your role and what Apollo's up to. So tell us a little bit just about your role at a high level. I know you and I were chatting briefly, but it's interesting to hear what you're actually doing, and that, as you said, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'll happy to take the questions as we go, but I'll give you the high level and then we'll start there. Um, but much like the last two kind of roles I had, I'm Apollo's first chief sustainability officer. I've been there about 2.5 years. I was actually trying to help with the right people in the right job. Spencer Stewart reached out to me. This was during, kind of the tail end of COVID, and Apollo was looking to hire their head of private equity ESG. That's what they were calling it at the time. And I was kind of doing that on my own. I had my own little thing, and I was kind of helping a bunch of different companies in a bunch of sectors, and I was really enjoying it. But COVID was a little, kind of Groundhog Day-ish at that point after 2 years. And I really didn't want that job. I didn't want to go to New York and do what I was doing already from my home and, the connections I had and the kind of the companies and friends I was working with. So I gave them some names, and they said, well, we're talking to them about this, this kind of top of the house role on their leadership team. And, that's still a little bit of work, but, maybe we can reach back out. And I said, I'm always happy to listen. And literally it was like a week and they reached back out. And I give the credit to one of the co-presidents, a guy named Scott Kleiman. There's two co-presidents, a CEO. They had just gone through some kind of pretty tremendous, evolution, revolution. They had change in leadership, new CEO, kind of an evolving business model. And they really were trying to figure out how to compete for the long term in a sustainable investing marketplace. I mean, they were obviously very successful. Today, we manage more than $651 billion under management. We manage, investments for most, if not many, the pension funds around the world, around the states, sovereign wealth. We are a source of capital for corporates all over the world, public, private. I mean, almost every day, if you're reading the Wall Street Journal, you'll see something that we're either involved in or reported to be involved in. Sometimes we're not always involved in everything that gets out there, but a lot of times you'll see all different sectors that we're in. So my job was really to come in and they had I would say, a really good backbone, a baseline of data and reporting for their private equity portfolio. And that's what they do. I think they had just published their 12th report on their private equity portfolio. So this is like a summary of what they've been doing with their private equity funds. They're in their 10th flagship fund right now. So it's Fund 10. This is kind of the $20 billion fund to take private, private equity fund that most people, it's relatively intuitive for most of us in the sustainability world. You work with companies and you help them be better businesses around sustainability and human capital, governance and reputation, and you make them more valuable, and then you exit. But that's probably 12 to 15% of the business. The other side, the biggest and fastest growing part of the business is credit or yield or sources of capital, lending to a bunch of different companies to do what they need to do. Some of it's sustainable, some of it just good business. We've got an impact platform. We do real estate investments. We do hybrid investments. We have a sustainable investing platform I'll talk about later. But to build all this and build the capabilities, and I told them, I'm like, this is not my experience. Like, I don't come from this sector. But they were actually seeking that out. And they wanted somebody that had built something from scratch with all of the, parts and pieces that make it stick to take their hand at it. I don't think they really knew what it would look like. I asked all of my CEOs when I go to companies what success looks like in their mind. And it's really telling. Most of them can't answer that, or they, then I poll them and I quiz them on a couple other questions. We can talk about that too, if we want to. But then we'll talk more about it. But that's my job, is to build and design this organization, this team, the management system, and the process to basically build a competitive advantage for Apollo. And it's a very complex, to me, very complex company, very complex business. And we'll talk more about it as we go.
Okay. So a lot of this must have been, you're coming in with the sustainability expertise. You've done that piece of it, multiple times, but you're learning a whole new business and all the new acronyms and all the new, things to think about that are different for different types of industries. So, tell me, like, how does sustainability within private capital then differ from within a tech company or consumer goods company? Like, what is it? Yeah, this looks like you have a more of a knock-on effect even into the private equity companies you're investing in. You said you have an impact platform. I'm just curious. It's not just doing in-house sustainability, it doesn't sound like.
Right. And I would probably say that I probably do much less of operational sustainability than I've ever done in my past life. I have to say it was definitely intimidating when I first got there and, tried to have to keep reminding myself, and I'm sure some of you have to do this as well, when I'm in these rooms with these super smart people, probably the smartest people. Maybe, the Intel people were smart in their level. These people are some of the smartest people on the planet. I was never going to, and I will never know what they know about investing, and I don't pretend to. But I had to keep reminding myself that they don't know anything about sustainability. Mm-hmm. And so in my little world, I'm their answer person in this space and helping them kind of see the light of this day. So in the private, let's just start with the business. When you think about an Intel or a Campbell or any businesses that you are working for or with, there's usually a product or a service, right, that the company makes or sells, and that's their competitive advantage. That's how they make money. Think about how companies actually earn revenue, right, and cost of goods sold. And these are, I think we can spend a lot of time on the business acumen, but that was my biggest ramp, and that was really important for me to be focused on. And when I really sit back, and it's been 2.5 years, and I was just having this conversation a couple of weeks ago with my head of strategy, and even comms, because I work with, we'll talk about all these pieces of the business that we kind of have brought into the ecosystem, is, the product of this company is return. It's literally investment return. And if you, in the Apollo kind of nomenclature, it's excess return for unit of risk. That is literally the product. The service is judgment, right? And flexible capital. I view talent and reputation as assets that need to be invested in and managed. But that's different than, an Intel that uses water and chemistries that aren't even on the periodic table to create the most complex microprocessors in the world and generate, toxic waste in big plants in these communities. There's all stakeholders are different. Supply chains are completely inverted in this world. And what I'm trying to design for, when I stop and think about it and challenge myself, how can I help Apollo? We're in leased buildings. Our footprint is small. It's a different job completely. But on the private equity side, so think about that as the context. About 2,000 people in the asset management business, another 2,500 over in the insurance business. I'll connect those in a while. It's pretty important to how the company does business. But on the private equity side, it is what you think. It is what we know. It is helping companies be better businesses. These are companies with supply chains, with products and services, with employees, with footprints, with some of them are pretty high intensity businesses. A woman named Carletta Uten is my head, our Apollo's head of private equity ESG. There's a team of 4 or 5 people under her focused on helping scale what we put together for all of these companies. There's somebody on the phone or somebody on the Zoom that was in one of these companies that we work with. And here it's, we have somebody that's an expert in climate and kind of environmental footprint, somebody that's an expert in human capital. We've got a couple people dedicated to strategies, one for our impact strategy, one for our sustainable investing strategy. And here we're trying to build capabilities that help 100 companies, right, get better and better over time. We've got decarbonization playbooks. We've got value creation playbooks for every company in the portfolio. We're helping companies set climate targets and human capital and diversity, board diversity targets. We're building, plans around operational efficiency that pay off in our holding period, which in most cases is 5 to 7 years, right? So we don't have the luxury all the time to think about investing in something that pays off in 20 years. I'll stop there on the private equity side. We can come back to that. We do reporting. Our next report will include 95 companies. The supplement of our report will include 95 companies on the private equity side, and probably another 50 on the real estate side. On the credit side is where it really gets interesting. It's the biggest part of our business and the fastest growing part of our business. And one of the things that we talk about at Apollo is fixed income replacement, like securing people's retirement, because we manage money for pension funds. So if you think about an insurance company that sells annuities, life insurance, they have a fixed return they need to meet. If I'm a retiree, I want to get my check and I want it to be predictable. We can match that expected return with the whole rest of our business and create just kind of magic. This is what Mark Rowan's, business model is all about, is basically fixed income replacement, matching those returns that are needed for retirement to the machine of Apollo and delivering excess returns. So we are a source of capital for large corporates all around the world, cities, states, countries, you name it. And it's the fastest growing part of our business. And any part of the world economy that needs capital for maybe M&A or to build a new line or to expand their business or to, invest in one part of their business without, messing up their balance sheet. That's what we do. And that continues to grow and grow. And it's our fastest growing part of the business as well. And if you pay attention to Apollo at all, or maybe you will after this call, you'll see that in the news all the time. Our chief economist puts out information every single day. We have an Apollo Academy that everybody in the world can actually sign up and learn about our business and learn more about the details of private capital. So that there's a person over there that comes from Goldman Sachs. So he's got financial expertise. There's 5 or 6 people on his team. They're building out scale and data quality and coverage and doing reporting for investors and LPs. They don't go to every single company and try to make them better like we do on private equity. It's lighter touch, but much faster in scale. There's 4,000 investments over there that we have to review every year. And we use SASB sector standards and we do screening. Every investment that comes into Apollo gets touched in some way from a sustainability review perspective. In the center of the house, I've got climate expertise. I've got a reporting team. I've got a head of strategy. We've built strong connections. I've got dedicated resources in communications. I've got 3 or 4 people now in IT writing code to scale some of these reporting. We're up to 400 reports a year on the credit side, 100 a quarter. Our products are regulated, so they require SFDR kind of reporting, TCFD. You guys know these acronyms. I don't have to spell them all out. We have to do reporting in the UK under TCFD. We're watching the SEC rules. We got California writing their own rules. So we're probably doing about 1,000 kind of ESG reports, maybe 1,200 a year. We get more than 650 due diligence requests from LPs, which are like miniature little sustainability reports as well. So there's a bit of a factory scaling that we're building. And I'll stop and then we'll kind of let you keep digging in.
Yeah, no, that just makes my head hurt thinking about reports like that, right? Like most of us are like, oh, I don't even want to do that one.
I got that one big report to do every year,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're like, that's too much.
We do that, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So I'm sure there's different levels of reporting within each of that, right? So how involved are you in all of that in terms of building and scaling the sustainability function?
It's gotten to be, it's I would say it's 2.5 years almost. It's a little over 2.5 years that I've been doing this now. And the first year, I was literally up at 2 a.m. with my report writing person doing reviews and trying to, it was like the old days when I used to write it at my dining room table by hand. But that was when we had like 3 or 4 people and everybody kind of had the same role. Everybody was, again, super smart people there on the team, but there was like 2 or 3 when I got there. And everybody had a kind of generalist function. And, we kind of like the person that hired the next person was like, well, I need help. So I'm going to hire somebody that is like me and they're going to help me. we can talk a little bit more, but now every single there's about 22 people across on the team, depending on how you count, a little more if you count some of these embedded or expanded ones. Everybody's got a unique role. They're known in the firm about what their role is. There was places where there were, challenges in just coverage. If I lost one person, like a big system would be disrupted in terms of reporting or engagement. So I need to make sure that I have built resiliency. I'm not adding any more people in 2024, which is good. So I've got unless we add a new strategy and I need to put a person on it. But in general, there's a ton of org design and a ton of governance and controls that we've worked on. But it's definitely gotten to the point where it's less of me doing all of these pieces and having a really great team, super talented, and expertise in really unique areas that all comes together to turn this into a winning competitive advantage for the firm. So it's much more about org design today, and now human capital, right? I mean, it's people management, it's team management, it's team health, org health. A lot of the work I'm doing this year is focused on training. We can talk about other parts of the business that I'm training, but because I sit on the leadership team, sitting with all of the business leaders every Monday morning at 8:00 has been super helpful. It's when you have that as part of your job, you realize what you didn't have in so many other jobs. There's so many other CSOs that report to somebody, and they, every once in a while they might get to talk to the CEO, but to literally like every week help this whole leadership team understand where we are, what to react to, what not to overreact to, especially in this environment in the US, is super helpful. And then, all of the systems behind all these decisions that we need to make. And so that it's not a people-driven, if anybody's heard me talk before, it's not a people-driven system, it's a process-driven system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yet one of your 4 criteria that you were going to talk about is talent, right? So it's about
Yes.
the people, and you built that out in 2.5 years from 3 people to how many now? Or what is your specific team? Obviously, it's embedded clearly across.
Yeah, no, we actually talk about 20. There's 22 people. If I talk about the 4 key principles, and I think this is what they're transferable, but they're obviously different weightings for this sector and the complexity of this business. But a lot of it, you've already probably picked up on the first one. It's designing your sustainability strategy to the business goals, the culture, and the strategy. Now, when I was at Intel, it was like I was, old day. It was just me. I, convinced them to create the job. Then I brought in somebody to help me, right? And I knew what I was weak in as an individual, so I would hire complementary skills, but that's completely different. Campbell, it was, like I needed a data person, so I found a data person. Here, it's literally about understanding where the business wants to go, how we actually make money, how we attract. Our input is also investment. So we our supply chain is investment, and our product is investment returns. So helping our deal teams, helping our marketing organization, helping our communications organization kind of tell this story has been critical. And then really thinking about the culture of where Apollo wants to be. Especially in the US, you can get whipsawed trying to respond or trying to react to what you read in the newspaper or what an activist brings to you. We're creating something that is, we call it Apollo-esque, but it's ours. We're not shy about talking about it. We'll debate anybody about our approach because, we're building it for us, not for somebody else. We obviously are listening to stakeholders and LPs. So we're designing for where our customers want us to be and stay one step ahead of regulators. So there's this design concept. Then to your point, Shannon, it's talent, right? How do we find and get the best talent and build, unlike other companies and where I was in the past, I was kind of starting from scratch, a blank slate, right? Here, I describe it as much more about like putting a puzzle together. Like there were some pretty key piece. It's not like I just need a generalist to come and like help me. Like I didn't hire anybody like that. I hired very specific, like, going out and finding a climate expert that can lead and own TCFD reporting and climate accounting was hard, right? making sure that I could find build a reporting team that understood brand reputation, but also the financial sector. So now I have somebody on my team who's superstar, brought over from Estee Lauder. Sorry, Estee, that I stole your person. But I also have somebody from TPG as the principal on the team.
Wow.
Who's been doing this for a while. And now I got a couple data people. We're building a couple data analysts and quality. So it's literally this surgical.
All right.
You could literally visualize the puzzle, and you're putting pieces in the puzzle. I don't think Shelley has a question. I just don't think she's on mute.
I know. I'm trying to mute her, but I don't know how to do that.
I'm so.
Now she's on mute.
Now she's got it. Okay. Yes, because
And
we're
then,
recording it. So we lose you when someone else talks, Dave.
The other two principles we can talk about now or we can talk about later, but they're really around the tools. How do we scale this in equity? How do we scale this in credit? And then the governance systems and the models. And I think for me, thinking about designing for where my business is, my culture, my leadership, my marketplace, putting the right talent in the right place. Everybody has a role. I'm not a big fan of people with blended roles, right? Everybody's got a lane, they own it, they're known for it. They have a personal brand that we're working on. How do we build scale? And then how do we build the governance structure, both from a people perspective, but also from a process perspective?
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a lot of this is, you're already kind of ahead of a lot of the people I work with that are frustrated in their sustainability roles because they don't have either the senior level buy-in, they're not reporting up to the right people, they don't have the budgets. One of our colleagues recently was about to hire and got their budgets cut, and so it sounds like you're kind of sitting in this like perfect world in a way where I know it's not perfect, but in this market, right?
No, it's a great world to be in, but it's not easy. Like all of this, I didn't walk in and they say, oh, here, go hire 20 people and here's your budget, right?
That was my question. So what? Yeah. So what was one of because I know you're a magician with this stuff. So what was your, because in 2.5 years to grow your team like that and to be able to, have already done so much in a quick amount of time, despite the fact that you're up at 2 a.m. doing reporting stuff,
not anymore. No,
not anymore. The early days. But how to build that? I mean, and we always talk about how do you get the business case? How do you get the buy-in? But it sounds like Apollo already knew they needed to be doing this.
Yeah, but they didn't. I'll get to this. Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
do tell me. You know where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't know what they knew what they didn't know, which is a great thing, right? That's good to have. They understand that part of it. But every single incremental thing we built was built with a key stakeholder in the firm, right? So sitting down and day one, literally going around and asking every single leader, like, what is it you're doing? What are you trying to drive? What's the gap? What are you getting asked out in the world? How can I help? How can I design a thing to solve for your problem? Human capital, the heads of private equity, the heads of credit, literally building connective tissue within the firm. Like my private equity team reports to me, but they also report into our private equity business. Just in January, I made sure that my credit team was also dotted lined into the credit business. So, we are not the way I would say in the center of the house. I'm trying to create the center of excellence where we have the answer to all the questions. We're not doing all of the work. Obviously, that's being done, the arms and the legs operationally in the business. But I don't want anybody to feel like they can't get a question answered, right? They don't have to go to I don't want to name, the big four, but they don't have to go to the big four, big five consulting firms, spend $500,000, take 6 months to get an answer to a sustainability question. They can just call me on the phone and I can tell them in 30 seconds, right? Like, what are the risks in this sector? I'm looking at this kind of company. There's the answer. So we built that in the center of the house. So they think of like the climate lead. I have to convince, my co-presidents, like I need this climate lead, or I need another bit of resilience on the reporting team. But in the private equity impact, sustainable investing platform, it is literally the leaders of this business. Okay, like we want to succeed. What do we need to succeed? Is this an engagement role where I'm going to the companies, I'm negotiating with the leadership team. We've got somebody on the board of directors. We're helping them set goals. We're helping them do their reporting. Or is it a scale role where we're trying to take data or build new data systems? We brought on probably 4 different, data providers on the credit side that we're leveraging to build better reporting for LPs. But it's all, think about it, if you're in a normal operating company going to your supply chain head or your procurement guy and saying, all right, like, you're under some pressure. What do we got to do in this business? What are we trying to do with food, apparel, automotive? And how can we build it together? That's how this team has been built every step of the way. If we add another person, that person's not going to be asked for by me. It'll be asked for by the business lead, and they'll report to me or they'll matrix into my system because they need to. It also,
that's the kind of integration and internal partnership piece, which is your third pillar.
Yeah. It also helps, businesses go through cycles, and a lot of you have been in a business there where there's cuts. They come looking at, we're like, all right, well, the corporate citizenship team's too fat, or I got too many people on the sustainability team. When they're looking at my team, they're like, they know they're there, but they can't really find them, right? They're like, they're helping the credit business be a better credit business. They're helping the private equity business be a better private equity business. They're communications people working on the sustainability angle. They're IT people. My IT people report into IT. But they come to my all hands meetings. I hold a weekly, a monthly, all hands meeting. We do a ton now on the integration side where, we put some content into new employee orientation. I send a personal note out to every single new hire within their first month. Within the first quarter, I hold a Zoom call for anybody that's interested that came to the firm so that they can understand. We do, we call them teach-ins, but they're literally like all firm learning sessions on climate reporting, on the private equity strategy, on the credit strategy, on carbon offsets. We hold an ESG conference for our private equity portfolio companies every 2 years out in Vegas, 300 attendees. And we are the green biz, right? And we're teaching our private equity companies about sustainability or human capital or governance and risk.
Great. Dave, I'm going to move us over to the audience and get some questions from them, if you're okay with that.
Of course.
I think we've covered most of our key pillars. But yes, I'd love to hear from Dee. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question to Dave, please?
Yes, thanks, Shannon, and thanks, Dave. My name is Dee Siegel. I'm a deputy CSO who has built a team a little bit like you, but in a different function. I'm very curious if you could talk a little about what it takes or what it took for you, who seemed to build your career very organically, to move from being a sustainability expert leader to being the sustainability function builder and facilitator. What are the skills, perspectives, experience that someone needs to make that shift?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dee. I think that, if I set the baseline, I think you need to understand kind of the material sustainability or corporate citizenship things, so without saying that, like that's the baseline, right? Of you need to understand kind of what's important for that company that you're in. That's given. I think a lot of it comes down to helping the company see what success looks like. I know I say that a few times, but if they don't understand where they are today and where they can go, it's very difficult to kind of ask for resources or help or moving that. And you build that through conversation. So there's a huge communication skill set that I think literally divides the profession, right? There's great content people, they get so far, but if they're not able to communicate, if they're not able to convey a vision of success, convey what's in it for them, right? My other leaders of the firm, my other business operators, I'm going to run into problems, right? And it's going to be, even if I have a CEO that is kind of bought in, you're kind of wedded to the CEO. The CEO leaves and everything kind of rolls back downhill again. It comes down to the expertise. It comes down to really, really working hard to understand the business. And I mean, at the level of a CFO and an operator, COO, which is hard. But that's when you're really helpful to the business, where you're really looking for issues. The other thing I think that's helped me in my roles is serving as, we call them different things at different companies, but helping the company identify emerging issues, like helping the company see around corners, trying to find out, trying to pay attention to a controversy that's coming before it actually shows up. Not in everything, but in the topics that and the topics that you're an expert in. And then, sharing credit. Don't take credit for anything. Like literally give credit to everybody else. She's there. She just came off mute.
Oh, there we go. Tracy? I think she was driving earlier.
Oh.
So Tracy was asking, I'll just jump in, talked about you talked about not hiring generalists into your team. So is there a place for sustainability generalists in private equity? Great question.
Yeah, I hate to be the bringer of not great news, but the world has changed. The world has changed, right? I talk to a ton of really smart people that are looking for generalist roles. They're there, right? They're like it was back in the day when, there were 3 of us and we'd go speak at a business school and everybody wanted our job. So think of, smaller companies, think of companies where they still haven't ever had their first sustainability lead. They do need a generalist. They need somebody that can think about this from a strategic perspective, somebody that can build a team. But there's fewer and fewer. Most companies that you and I know have taken a few cracks at this already, right? There's somebody around, maybe, sometimes it's a lot more human capital in org design these days. Sometimes I know people have to come in and maybe they have to replace a couple people and hire new people. It's different these days. If you come in with a blank slate and you can find it, it's great. There are private companies, so I'm sure there are companies in our portfolio that at some point needed, their first sustainability officer, or they lost, they had one person and they lost that person. I literally just asked Carletta 2 weeks ago if we had any searches going on in our entire universe of portcos for sustainability leads, and she said not at the moment. So they're there, but they're not like they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So having the generalist kind of mindset and being able to help the company see the future, but also being able to bring something very tangible to that company is kind of the minimum now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, this is a great one from Syed. Syed, do you want to pop up?
I hope you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Great forum, and thank you, Dave. Great insights. So I think this is something we in US are sweating about for a while now. The politicizing of ESG, right? In certain quarters now, it's becoming a hush word. In fact, DE&I is now becoming a word which we are trying to actively dance around recently. So what's your, I just put in my message about Larry Fink, right? This year, his letter has, stayed away from using the term. How do you see in your space, in the finance, ESG finance world, but also in the broader space, is it becoming a term that we need to sort of dance around as well? Maybe go to sustainability and then maybe go out of this, or how should we do it?
All right, I'll try to get on my soapbox and off as quickly as I can. I have always been about we are our own worst enemy when we create these acronyms and we try to communicate them. The number of people that, and it's this sector. I literally have done training. I have a whole board deck where I've trained my entire board on when they get asked, "Do you do ESG?" How to respond about what we are actually doing. I just met with the entire human capital team this week and shared that same kind of conversation with them, and I'm helping them navigate the DE&I topic as well. We don't do ESG. We never have, right? We at Apollo or Intel or Campbell, there's different ways that we approach this, but at Apollo, and this is a way I talk about it, and I give them tools and we write Q&A for them. We're building more robust risk management processes where if we can better manage risk, better assess it, better manage it, that is a competitive advantage. That cuts across every single sector, right? And we're layering in new tools and new processes to do that. on the sustainability. And there's some great, I've got some colleagues out there that talk about that as identifying future risk. And I think that's a great concept, right? You could say ESG, we talk about it data, we spell it out sometimes. We've gotten much more precise about communicating it, but we talk about environmental, social, and governance factors in our 10K, in our proxy, in our report. We have a public policy on the space. We've got a board committee. I've used sustainability, kind of what I tried to bring to the firm, right? We were doing pretty good environmental, social, governance, risk assessment, and management. Sustainability, I believe, is about unlocking value that's literally sitting right there on the table and creating new value, right? And it could be energy efficiency and resource reduction, but it could be customer acquisition and thinking about the future in a way that reduces cost and drives innovation. And then it's about partnerships and it's about relationships in our world. So it's better managing risks, unlocking value, and driving these partnerships. I'll debate Ron DeSantis. I'll debate somebody in Europe. I can use the same language all the time. We don't find ourselves on boycott lists. We don't get sideways. This is what I was talking about in the Apollo lane. It's the one thing that I know our two co-presidents and our CEO are very happy about not getting dragged into this, because this sector is the one that started to label things ESG fund, ESG. I just vented to my comms team yesterday. There was a story in Bloomberg, and some of you may have seen it, is Tesla. And it's a replay of an old controversy. Is Tesla an ESG stock? There's no such thing as an ESG stock. There never has been. There never will be, right? There are companies that score well or not so well on a Sustainalytics or an MSCI or an ISS score. But that's not the definition of an ESG stock. I mean, so being precise, sticking to your guns, not using shorthand, it would be the way I would advise on this, Syed. And if you're kind of digging out of a hole, like, you know, one of our private or one of our public capital companies in this sector, you can see them. They just get whipsawed every day. They can't please anybody anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and candor, Dave.
Yeah,
Much appreciated.
That's great. Great question, though, Syed. Well, good. I think we're a bit out of time, unfortunately, but I wanted to just say thank you. We could talk all day on this juicy topic, Dave, I know. But thank you to your team as well, Dave, for helping organize this today, and for everyone and your great participation and questions. We do have an amazing lineup coming up in the coming months for Impact Leaders Lab. So make sure you hop onto our website, join the membership, and then, which is free, and then the individual events as well, you have to sign up separately for. And then please do join our LinkedIn group. So also Impact Leaders Lab. And then next month in May, we've got one of Dave's close colleagues from an ex-Campbell person, Megan Melton-Fort, who's now VP of ESG.
You've got all my past team. You did Nikki.
All your crowdies. I know we had
yeah.
Nikki King. I know all these Campbell's people. They go on to do amazing things.
Roma, Dan Salk. Yeah, they're all great. They're all great.